Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Dialogues on Mediumship, a program that is designed to explore and deepen the concepts of mediumship through the lens of Spiritism. And today, we are very excited to have distinct guests here today to talk about ethics and responsibilities in mediumship. Before we begin, though, we are just very glad that you're here, and we want to share that this program is made possible by the study and practice mediumship area of the International Spiritist Council that continues to work to shed some light on what Spiritism brings to mediumship. Mediumship is such an interesting topic, and perhaps very few ways of thinking can add more to its understanding than Spiritism, who has been researching it for more than 70 years. We're so thrilled that you're here. We're excited with the conversation that we are going to have, and we want you to join it. So please feel free to bring in your questions, your comments on the chat, and we'll try to get to as many of them as possible during the time that we have here together. But before I get to introduce a little bit and say hello to our friends who are here with us and who are going to really help us with this discussion, I just want to remind you and share with you the exciting news that the International Spiritist Council, the area of study and practice of mediumship, has recently released a reference library of works related to mediumship. There are books that are referenced there for your study, for your understanding, in case you want to deepen your knowledge in the area. They are available in 13 different languages, and it's easily reachable, and anybody can find out what they are. Just go to the International Spiritist Council's website. If you are watching us now, you can see that there's a QR code there that you can reference, and that is a great library for you to deepen or start your mediumship studies. Mediumship being such an important part of our existence. And again, we're so excited that today we have a chance to talk about ethics and responsibilities in mediumship. As you know, if you're watching us and if you're interested in mediumship, mediumship is a vast field of knowledge that one can spend years studying. And that is really a worth endeavor. Today, again, we are focusing on the concept of ethics and responsibility in mediumship. And to help us here, we have our friend Stevan Bertozzo from the Irish Spiritist Federation. Stevan, how are you?
Hey, Dan, how are you?
Good. Thanks for being with us here today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, and we also have João Korngold from the Spiritist Group of New York. João, how are you doing?
Good, and you? Glad to be here. Very important topic to discuss always. So, excited for the discussion.
And we're excited to be here with you. And of course, last but definitely not least, our friend Thiago Keller from the Allan Kardec Vancouver Society in Canada. Thiago, how are you doing?
Everything's great. Thank you again for this opportunity to be here to talk about this very important topic. So I'm excited for all the reflections today.
Wonderful. And if you are joining us on the web one more time, please feel free to send us your notes, your questions, your comments, in whichever social media you may be watching us. And we are going to try to get to as many questions as possible during the time we have. But to make sure that we start off on the right foot, we want to give you some context about the topic. And so we are going to invite each of our esteemed panelists here today to share some preliminary insights for about 5 minutes or so to get our creative juices flowing and so that we may have some context. After this short period of time, after these 5 minutes for each one of our speakers, we are going to open the floor for your questions. And that's why we have been asking you for your input on the chat here. And let's go ahead and without further ado, let's bring here Stevan to start our conversation about mediumship and it comes to ethics and responsibilities. Stevan, can you lead us into this preliminary introduction?
My pleasure. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to share this moment with João and Thiago and yourself. So, good evening, everybody. Good afternoon or good morning. I don't know from where you are watching us or when you're going to watching us, but here we are to start our reflections about ethics and responsibility in the mediumship. But first of all, we need to understand the foundation. what is moral and how it differs from ethics. And according to the Spirit's book, question 629, Allan Kardec asked to the Spirits, what definition can be given of morality? And the Spirit's response was, morality is the rule for good conduct. It is the distinction between good and evil. What this answer brings us? This answer brings a view that morality it is universal, though its application may vary across cultures and times. It deeply connects to the law of God, also known as the divine or natural law, which governs the harmony of the universe and is written in our conscience. Kardec explored this further in the section of the moral laws in the Spirit's book. This goes from question 614 to 648. And there we learn that morality is not a human invention, but a spiritual compass guiding us towards goodness, justice, and love. And now, the second part, what it is ethics. While morality is the internal principle, the divine sense of right and wrong, ethics can be seen as the external application of those principles, especially in professional or social contexts. Ethics in Spiritism means applying moral values to specific roles, such as being a medium. Some examples. Morality tells us it is wrong to deceive others. Ethics tell us the medium they must be truthful and humble in the message they convey. In the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 17, Be Perfect, Kardec says, the truly moral person is the one who practices the law of justice, love, and charity in its greatest purity. This ideal applies directly to mediumship. Mediums are not just transmitters of spiritual messages. They are all moral agents responsible for how they use their gift. Their intentions, character, and behavior directly influence the quality of communication they attract. Summarizing this 3-4 minutes, morality is the divine law within us, teaching us to do good. Ethics is how we express that morality in our responsibilities, in our relationships and roles, such as the sacred responsibility of mediumship. In our discussion today, as we explore ethical responsibility in mediumship, let us remember that at the heart of it lies the call to become better human beings, more just, more loving, and more aware of the influence we have, both materially and spiritually. Thank you, Don. I hope this short introduction may clarify what is ethics and morality in the spirit, in the mediumship.
Thank you, Stevan. We really appreciate you setting the foundation there for us to understand ethics and responsibilities as we engage in this important topic. And with that, let's ask our friend Thiago Keller to come in here and also share some initial insights into the topic before we dive into some questions. Thiago, the floor is yours.
Yeah, as Stevan introduced and brought also the question 629 from the Spirit's book. So ethics is the mediumship in the practical application of this divine law. And this is exactly what will guide us to use our free will for what is just, for what is charitable, for what is loving. So this is because the mediumship, it is a divine gift, and it is intent not for our personal ambition or pleasure, like even the video introduced with this quote, but it is for the good of all. And the ethical mediumship, it requires living this gift correctly, guided by some virtues that I'm going to bring today. So one of those would be seriousness. So it means treating the mediumship with respect. So it is not never as a game or for entertainment. As Allan Kardec also warns in the Medium's book, that a frivolous approach will attract some deceptive spirits. So one part of this seriousness as well, we could say that is punctuality, which show respect for the spiritual work and for the spirits as well that are involved, discipline, frequency, and the seriousness also extend, for example, for the questions we ask the spirits. And this is so important that Kardec dedicated an entire chapter on how to guide us toward this meaningful and respectful communication, showing exactly what questions we should ask and how we should approach in a good way that the good spirits could be part of this work. Humility is equally vital for the work. So the medium is just an instrument. He's not the source of the message. So Allan Kardec brought to us in the Medium's book that the pride or vanity will all cause the good spirits to withdraw, to leave, and this will leave room for less reliable spirits. And finally, to complete those virtues, sincerity. So Kardec also emphasized on the Medium's book that the truth cannot be duly transmitted by a liar. So it highlights how a medium's moral state will directly impact and influence the quality of the communication. Ethical mediumship also require respect, not only for the message that are being received, but as well for the spirits and everybody that is involved in this work. So the mediums, they must maintain an inner discipline to ensure also the message remain clear, the message remain useful, and recognize that the purpose of the mediumship is always the progress of the humanity, not the own pleasure. And this we can find directly on the Medium's book, the introduction. So the medium requires to cultivate some also virtues such as discernment, discretion, prudence. Discernment is the ability to test the message, so not accepting them blindly. And Kardec did a wonderful job with that, questioning the spirits exactly, because the spirits, they don't have an ID. You cannot judge them by their names. So you have to judge them by the quality of their morals and the wisdom they are bringing in their words. So, and also discretion means handling this sensitive information with care, with empathy. So charity never allows us to expose or to embarrass anyone. So we have to maintain this discretion with all the work that we are doing. And prudence as well is that daily vigilance that we need to avoid being deceived. And to conclude, as Jesus said, give freely what you have received freely. So this is on Matthew 10:8. So Kardec recalls this in Medium's book as well, saying that the good spirits will not participate in work that is driven by selfishness or greed. So when the mediumship is commercialized or doing for its own purpose, it loses the purity, and it will attract also spirits of similar low vibration. So ethics in mediumship is this inner journey of like inner reform. So thank you again, Dan, and the team for this opportunity to talk about a little bit more about ethics here in mediumship.
Thank you, Thiago, for diving a little bit deeper into the characters and the values and the virtues that we want to emulate as Spiritists practicing mediumship. We appreciate those remarks. And let's also invite Mr. Korngold. João, can you share some insights as well for us to warm ourselves up before we engage in some discussion about mediumship, ethics, and responsibility?
Sure. Thanks, Danny. Thanks, everyone. So what we are going to briefly cover here is why mediumistic preparation matters, right? In the book This Obsession, André Luiz highlights the structured nature of the mediumship sessions, the importance of preparation before, during, and after the service. And he stressed that proper preparation isn't optional because it safeguards the medium, protects the spirits involved, and ensures beneficial spiritual benefit for all participants. So if we can divide in before, during, and after a mystic session or a mediumship meeting, before the session, we should focus on prayer, on moral readiness, and teamwork. Early prayers, spoken from the heart, that will set the tone, helping harmonize both spiritual workers and assistants. The connection between the directors in the spiritual world and the mediums are important and clarifies the counseling process where it's going to go. And for that, a daily study of Spiritism, the gospel teachings, and practicing charity that cultivates moral strength, which is a crucial shield against spiritual discord. What happens during the session? During the session, all participants should have compassion, vigilance, and avoiding external disturbances. Mediums interact with suffering spirits who are confused, who are unaware that they are in the spiritual world, who are angry. So we have to have compassion and humility. Both are essential. If there is an obsession, we need to handle it with kindness, but firmly, and with prayer. So what are the effective responses during a meeting? Try not to be deceived, exercise patience, always appealing to one's guardian or superior spirits, and resisting provocation with resolve, with serene moral resolve, because sometimes the communicating spirit is much more intelligent than the dialoguer, or the group. So to enter into confrontation or accept the provocations, it's only going to cause disturbance and it's not going to help. And then after the session, mediums should reflect on how the meeting influenced their own spiritual state. And very key point here is to maintain emotional balance. Of course, continuing moral improvement, engaging in charitable actions, because this ensures lasting alignment with spiritual guidance. And also from the book Disobsession, we learn that a structured loving service helps rebuild our moral pathways and benefits both the medium and the spirit, and prevents negativity and disturbances. So mediumship, as studied in Spiritism, is a transformative activity. After each session, the worker must recalibrate internally and spiritually. These reflections will help maintain long-term balance and help us on our pathway. And as André Luiz reminds us, true mediumship is not about spectacle. It's a sacred service. With preparation, love, and moral resolve, mediums then become instruments of healing and harmony. That's my part here.
Thank you, João. We appreciate it. Thank you for your insights on very structured insights on the before, the during, and the after of a mediumship meeting. And I think it's really great for us to also take a quick second to contextualize for folks who may not be familiar with our practice. In Spiritism, we tend to favor a group approach where we have meetings where we have mediumship dedicated to the assistance of others. It doesn't always happen so in different practices, but that's how we see the work being done. It doesn't prevent individual meetings from working, but we take this group approach to mediumship, which we feel brings us some strength, some stability, and some support, right? And I think you spoke beautifully to that. Maybe I can open up the question to the three of you is, what are the implications of not having this ethical behavior? How does it affect not only a spiritist group, but also the individual mediums who are part of that work if they are not taking heed or taking really paying attention to these values, norms, and habits that you guys spoke about so eloquently?
I think that the risk, there is a collective risk and there is an individual risk, right? The mentors and spiritual directors of a group will try to isolate any member that is dissonant with the rest of the group, but they cannot protect the group as a whole if the whole group deviates from the original intention, which is to help and assist the spirits in need, right? So it is important for the group to discuss, for the group to talk about what's going on, to be open with one another, to help understand the issues that may be arising from problems that are affecting one individual or the group as a whole. So it is dialogue, always very important, the dialogue, internal dialogue in the group.
And how about the two of you guys? Anything else you may want to add on that?
Yeah, I think as João said, the main goal is always helping to progress the humanity. And if you start seeing that that some of those spirits or other type of spirits, they want to change the basis of this principle that is helping others, then you have to question why am I doing that? Why this group is doing that? So the good spirits, they don't mind being questioned. So that's one of their virtues, because they don't have greed. They are not selfish, right? So they don't mind being questioned because they want the job to be done. It's more the job of helping to serving Jesus is more important than themselves. So and in a long term, we can read on the Medium's book as well. This can become, for example, an obsession, a fascination, for example. So it can lead to, as one said, in a group harm or individual harm. But we always have to ask every time we are doing a work: am I like serving Jesus, or am I just serving my ego? Why am I doing that? So we have to have Jesus always as the guide, and for all the work that we do.
Yeah, I resonate what João and Thiago said here, but we need always to remember that the ethical responsibilities of a medium include sincerity, humility, and moral integrity. So a medium behavior, if you decide to go to this path, you are not just a medium when you are in a mediumship meeting. You are a medium 24/7. So the way you treat your co-workers, the way you treat your family members, the way you treat your friends, it's all accountable. You are not just medium when you are in a mediumship meeting. So when you go to this path, you have only one option here. You need to change yourself. And this is the most beautiful part in the mediumship. You need to know yourself.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I think that you guys have sort of touched on one question that many developing mediums or seasoned mediums who are always trying to develop themselves ask, which is, how can we know if I'm being ethically responsible? Right? I think that João did a great job of helping us break down the before, the during, and then after. Thiago, I think you brought some virtues and some characteristics in your opening remarks too that you touched on, and then Stevan also brought it here. But you guys have, from your experience, are there any other tips that you may give to a medium who's starting or is thinking about starting mediumship studies and understands that there's a benefit to being ethically responsible? What are some of the practical things that you think that they can do when they are getting prepared to go into mediumistic studies?
I can start then. So as Stevan mentioned, so first of all, we need to understand that we need to understand who we are first. So understand what are the things that we need to work on. And I think that's why you can't start studying mediumship without having the basis. So you have to learn first the gospel. You have to learn the Spirit's book. So you have to have this foundation prior to start working in mediumship sessions. So I would recommend also the studies. So do the gospel in your house, study the gospel in a group, so you can talk about the gospel, so you have this foundation prior to start working, so you can understand why you are doing this work instead of just go there and work. You have to understand why. You have to understand what the issues you may found during this journey, and you have to challenge yourself as well, because once you start studying, you see things in yourself that you haven't seen before, and sometimes it hurts because growing hurts, but this is when you start to know that you are growing spiritually. So studying the gospel, studying the Spirit's book, studying the medium's book, but having these foundations is very important before studying, going to work with that.
Yeah. So let me go to João, wrap up. So I'm just saying here then, while mediumship is a faculty, independent of moral development, I would say that ethical and moral elevation, it's what determine the usefulness and the spiritual reliability of the communication. So again, I go back to our previous question. You need to improve yourself. And when you start dealing with mediumship, you will know a new person. You need to be open to criticism. You need to be open to be challenged. You need to be open to not always receive a compliment and saying, "Oh, you are the best one here." You need to be on. You need to accept when people question. Oh, do you think this is a true message? Do you think this is the spirit who signed it? It is a true spirit, or is a deceived spirit? So you need to be open to accept and study and go deeper in your mediumship practice exercise.
Thank you, Stevan. And we have some questions coming in. We see them. We're trying to get to them as soon as we can. We're going to keep coming. They're going to keep coming. Please keep them coming. And while you guys are saying this, then there's also the other side, right? What are some of the things that we can do as spiritists in a spiritist group if we notice the less than ethical behavior of one of our partners? Right. So there's obviously the idea of us watching for our own ethical behavior, our conduct. But are there ways in which we can helpfully notice or note or tap our friends that are practicing with us when we think that perhaps their conduct is not following the guidelines of our group? Are there some ways in which you guys have dealt with this before? What are some suggestions that you may give to some of our friends who are part of a group and believe that some ethical or less than ethical conduct is happening by any of our mediums?
It is a challenge. You need to be firm, but you need to be kind. It's important to remember that the group is more important than any individual. If an individual is disturbing a group, it needs to be addressed, even if it is to remove this individual from the group, because you are going to, when this happens, you are going to hear, wow, but where is charity there? Well, the collective is more important than the individual. So we should address directly with the individual in a charitable way, asking the individual to question him or herself on their attitudes and trying to address the issue and try to resolve. But if we can't, we need to eventually remove the individual from the group, because a bad apple can ruin the whole collective. I forgot the collective of apples.
An orchard of apples, a basket of apples, you know.
Yeah,
Or the bunch of apples, you know. But yeah, thank you for that, João, because these are practical situations that happen sometimes and are hard to deal with for anybody, right? Approaching somebody and talking to them about something that we disagree with or perhaps are concerned about is an important skill that all of us could always benefit from learning or improving on. And that is even more sensitive within the mediumistic environment, where we are prone to spiritual influences as well, right? And so along those lines, right, how do you think our day-to-day choices affect our spiritual connections we make, and how does that come in? Because clearly we're not just mediums when we're in a mediumistic meeting, right? And so how should we go about transferring this ethics and responsibility to our lives too?
Well,
sorry, go ahead, Stevan.
We are kind of a radio station. Well, when you want to listen rock and roll, you tune your dial to a rock and roll station. When you want to listen classic music, you need to tune your radio to a classic music station. And like we are. Sometimes when we wake up, we are in a rock and roll mood. We need to put ourselves on a rock and roll. And this is us. We change the dial every time. So putting this in practice, unfortunately, we are not there yet. We don't have the power to keep us in a high level station all the time. It is difficult. I invite everyone to do an exercise. Stay like 5 minutes just thinking good things, just thinking about beautiful things. It's going to be the most hard. This is going to be the hardest exercise you're going to do in your life. But as a medium, and we are about to recognize that thought is not ours, this is not me, this is influence me, I have the power to change the tune. And when we have this ability to change the tune, this is progress. This is evolvement for us, because we are starting to recognize, wow, I need to change. I need to change my dial. I need to change my ethics here. I need to ask for forgiveness, or I need to forgive more. So this is the ups and downs. This is why you are here. If you are, I'm sorry, if you are in a higher station, in a higher sphere, perhaps you are in the wrong planet. But the characteristics of us here on Earth, we are full of up and downs every single minute.
If you think you're the wrong planet because you're above, and there's even a greater responsibility for you to help us, because we need it. We need your great behavior, conduct, principles, and values in this world. So thank you for that, Stevan. Anybody want to jump in, or can I mean, there are questions. I will keep peppering questions at you if you don't want to chime in on that particular topic.
Yeah, I just want to add also, as Kardec says, that the good spirit is the one who make efforts to become better. Mm-hmm. So if you're not making this effort, and not also that we are being medium 24/7, we are also being watched 24/7. So how can you ask the spirit for forgiveness if you're not doing this in your life, and he's seeing that you're not doing that? So you become a hypocrite. So you have to show them that you're truly making the effort to become better. So and you have to have empathy to the other spirits as well. They are in this journey too. So like I said, the good spirits, it's how much effort you're putting to change yourself.
Wonderful, thank you. how do we address a medium who is scaring other mediums, driving them away from service? Again, this is one of those group dynamics, right? That sometimes we face. People have different approaches, and we respect people's different approaches, but there's always generally a group feeling, a group guideline. So how can we tap into someone who may be perhaps scaring other people into not being part of the mediumistic team?
I think the dialogue here goes back to dialogue, right? The mediums that are being scared away need to learn how to deal with the different types of spirits and mediums that are going to be present. We may not agree with everything that is happening, but we have to respect. Sometimes it's a medium that is not still well developed in the sense of controlling their mediumship, and because of they are still learning how to control their mediumship, they may be prone to manifestations that may be aggressive, that they may be very demonstrative, and that may scare other mediums. But it is the responsibility of the directors of the meeting to deal with both sides, right? Educate the medium to better control their mediumship, and educate the mediums not to be scared. It's, if you go to a mediumship meeting and you become scared of the spirit communicating, for instance, if you don't believe that you are protected there, and you have to question yourself if that's something that persists, if you are in the right place, right? Because there are several ways of using your mediumship. Mediumship meeting is not the only way to use your mediumship. You can use your mediumship on every action that you take during your day. You can go work in a hospital as a volunteer. That's a great way to use your mediumship. You don't need to go to a mediumship meeting.
Wonderful.
Great point, João. Great point. And I love that perspective too, right? Because sometimes we feel like we must, but it's important to figure out what is the best fit for us. And maybe that group may not be the best fit, but maybe another one will be. Right? There's many different ways to serve, as there are many different kinds of groups. So thank you for that perspective. We are getting a lot of questions here about how to differentiate the value of a communication too, right? And I think it's a wonderful topic, but just so if you're sending those questions in, I just want to make sure you know that we're prioritizing the ethics, or not just how to differentiate the communication, but what is the ethic involved in that. So I know that some people are messaging us here too. But when it comes to ethics, one of the topics, people, that I think that you may have answered questions about often is the idea of paid mediumship, right? I think Thiago brought us in his introduction the idea of the powerful words of the Christ about freely giving what freely we have received. And oftentimes there's quite a bit of confusion of what is it that we suggest, or Spiritism suggests we do, because as a general rule of thumb, I think we can say that Spiritism never tells us to do anything. It informs us, it respects our free will, and enlightens and educates us about courses of actions that we think might be best for us. So we're not here to judge others. But the question about charging for mediumship always comes up. And we have one here in the chat as well about the specifics of that, right? Which is, in this particular case, without citing names or knowing more information, our friend asks for some advice here in this case. He is part of an organization that has been putting together some mediumistic meetings for the larger public, and he would like some guidance. Those meetings are for healing purposes. The medium seems to be well-intentioned. People seem to be well-intentioned. But he is concerned about the fact that for that event, there is a fee that is being charged for that event. The fee is going to cover costs, and any extra, income, it's being donated away. And there's also an opportunity for people to come in without necessarily paying an entry fee. So there's different ways, but he still has a little bit of doubt whether that is a prudent approach, given that direction that Jesus has given us to freely give what we freely receive, right? And so even though nobody's making money from that event, we are always worried a little bit about whether we're doing the right thing. So what do you guys take on this case? How should we look at that? And what are some perspectives that we can offer to our friend Vinicius here in the case?
Okay, I can start here. It's a very complex question and situation, because we learn in Spiritism that you should give for free what you receive for free, right? Now, when we have public events, lectures, panels, discussions, there are costs involved. So charging for public events in the sense of lectures, roundtables, discussions, not mediumship, it is part of the cost of doing business, let's say, right? You need to rent a space. You need to pay for as long as the speakers are not being paid, right? As long as those that are working as volunteers, to charge for the admission to cover the costs, it's natural and recommended. Now, when it involves mediumship, it becomes a little more complex. You enter in a gray area, because the spiritual influences are much more challenging when you are anything related to mediumship, both of healing or counseling or anything like that. So in my opinion, I would avoid charging when there is mediumship of any sort involved, because you are increasing the risk of deceiving, of being deceived, of being influenced by spirits that want to disturb. And as it is said many times, when you talk about mediumship, paid mediumship is very common in this country, right? People pay for readings, pay for advices. Now, whenever you are paying, the simplest question is, the medium is receiving something, so it has to give something. And if it doesn't have it mediumistically, it may be anemic, it may be deceiving, and because it's risky, I would avoid, because I think wherever it involves mediumship, we shouldn't charge.
Yeah, I love that you are talking about the expectations, right? Because for us, it makes tons of sense that when we are in the Spiritist contest, that we're doing with this kindness of our heart. But whenever there's an exchange of monies, there's the expectation I'm getting something back, right? If we are clear, I think you did a great job there, João, laying the ground for it. If we're clear about where the money goes and that we're not benefiting from it, it really helps, deal with the worries and the troubles that might come away from who's making money here, which is a concern in our world, right? So I really appreciate that perspective, João. And Stevan, you and Thiago, you guys have a perspective on this one? You want to chime in? Or you want to double down and double click on João's answer?
Well, I agree with you, João. Especially when we are saying, like, hiring a room, I don't know, here in Ireland, a room in city center cost arms and legs. Sound system, it's a fortune. So, and this involves costs. As long as, in my opinion, as long as we have this very specified, this is to cover the costs, and I don't know, at the beginning, we at the front we have like a list with, okay, how much was charged, what these are our costs, so it's become clear. And João rightly said, as long as the medium don't charge to offer that mediumship work, it's totally different. If a medium starts to charge for something, then it is completely
it's not our way of doing it. Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, so we need it is a very Dan, you know what I'm saying? Since I'm here out of Brazil, we sometimes when things are free, people start to talk about. They're saying, "Oh, there is someone financing you here. There is a group here supporting you. There is a finance to charging you." So it is very tricky. It is
Yeah.
always
And
very
there are cultural differences in how that is perceived,
yes,
right?
yes,
But I love that you say that, because I think that sometimes we tell people that spiritists don't charge, and that is absolutely true. And we miss the opportunity to tell them why. And I think João did a great job of doing that. And the other piece is, if we were to take payment here, then we can't expect the double dip and take payment in the spiritual world,
yeah,
right? And so we prefer to gather our treasures over there. This is where our focus is. So that's one of the reasons why we want to be aligned. We don't want to take the payment in this world. We want to make sure we're contributing to the other world, and we can't do it twice, right? So we can't ask for payment and also say that we did a great thing to help the world. It becomes a more of a fuzzy message. So I appreciate that perspective quite a bit in that. And we know, and if you're listening and if you're watching here, whether live or later on, please know that we're not passing judgment whatsoever. We're just really trying to figure it out. What is the most noble, what is the most virtuous way of doing this right? Because our heart tells us that we need to take care and be good when we use mediumship, because it's such a wonderful gift, right? As our panelists here have kind of talked to us about this. And maybe this is a good time, unless, Thiago, do you want to chime in on this one too, or should I lob you another question?
Yeah, just to add a little bit. So one question we need to ask, is it like impose? So you pay and you receive the cure or something? Because I like João and Stevan said, it's like if you are imposing something that you're receiving a cure from a spirit, so it's not the medium the source of the cure. So how can you charge for something that is not you that is doing? And also Kardec says that there are other ways of getting the income to pay for your institution, for the infrastructure as well, such as selling books. So the library should be one of the best part of your income. I know it's hard nowadays to sell books, but it should be one of your incomes. So if it's not imposed and by donation, a lot of people feel touched when they are in spirits centers to contribute with the cause. But if it's something imposed, I think we should just see and check if it's really the main purpose of the spirits doctrine.
Great. And I think that we had some great advice here by João earlier too, and different things, right? Which is, if you come into this situation and you have concerns, go talk to some of the people. Go ask questions. Go understand the whys behind. Go see their intentions. And that might be a good way for you to feel whether you think this is a good activity, whether you want to join in on that or not, right? You can't control other people, but you can certainly talk and express. And I think that advice that João gave us on how to approach other people with kindness was really powerful and works in many different ways, right? So that might be a way of doing that. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I agree. I said out loud here.
Great. There's so much we can talk about. And I'll just have one more practical question, and then we can begin to think about our time and how to wrap up, right? So we are talking about groups. We're talking about individuals. We talked about the importance of preparation for mediumship, dedication, and how do you evaluate whether you're being ethical or if you're doing the best you can. What are some of the tools that a medium or aspiring medium or a group member can have on their belt, right? How important are habits like prayer, meditation, or study in ensuring mediumship remains uplifting and not draining? And others, if you have them.
Well, it's I think it's not only for mediumship, right? But it's for our own moral and intellectual involvement. All these habits are important for all of us. We should focus on how we can improve ourselves, how can we continue evolving, And the two, as Emmanuel teaches us, the two wings of evolution is the moral and intellectual. So the intellectual is the easy one because you just add more things to what you already had. The moral evolvement is the difficult one because you have to eliminate things, eliminate the imperfections, right? So I think it applies to everything that we live in our lives, right? Prayer, meditation, all instruments, all resources we can use to improve ourselves are good ones, right? Normally, when I talk to people that come to the center asking for guidance on how to avoid mediumship disturbances or spiritual disturbances, and how to isolate from the noises, I tell them, listen, try to find your own ways to move away from these influences. Each person has a different way of it. Stevan mentioned, rock music, classical music, tuning with what you like, right? Try to tune with things that you can distract you from these spiritual influences and try to focus on what can help you grow. I think that's basically it.
Yeah, it is. It is important all the time stay studying situation, not just in spirit center, in mediumship, in your life. Every time you deal with something different, and we need to study it in order to say your opinion. Giving opinion just because you heard that or you heard this or you heard, it's not opinion. It's not your opinion. You just are echoing what others telling you. But when you study, when you go deep and dive, when you read, when you make your research, when you have a position, then it's totally different. So I would say, not just for spiritism or for life, it's important to study, to stay tuned, like João said. If you like one station, stay there. No problem at all. Nobody gonna judge you. You have the free will. But remember, the free will, it is limited according to your knowledge.
Wonderful, wonderful. And as we get nearer to our time, which always goes by fast when we are having fun, I'm sure, I just want to go back really quickly to the idea that there are many resources for people to go back and study. Our speakers here today helped us understand. They mentioned the Spirit's book. There is also, of course, the Medium's book, this incredible treatise that started this understanding of mediumship. The second book of the codification, in my opinion, is amazing because it was the first treaty ever in the history of humanity that helped us understand how mediumship worked. Never before in the history of humanity have we had a work that tried to make things so clear for others to learn from mediumship. So if you want to know more about ethics and responsibility, it might be a wonderful place for you to go into. The second part, I think chapter 19 and chapter 20 is particularly interesting with the role of mediums and the moral influence of the medium and the role of mediums in communication. So you can go there. But I also want to remind people that the area of mediumship study and practice of the International Spiritist Council has put together this reference list with books in 13 different languages. And I think I might have misspoken earlier before. The list was in 13 languages. I meant it was that the resources are in 13 different languages. And you can click on that QR code over there if you would like to learn more about the books. Right. So just as a reminder, their study process is always ongoing, and nobody claims to be an expert here. We're always learning. So you too could go and form your opinion by reading. Right. And with that, I want to turn it over to our friends here for some final considerations. So can I have you, each one of you, in about a minute or two, not long, just tell us what is your biggest takeaway? What is most important? What is it that we should keep at the forefront of our minds when it comes to ethics and responsibilities in the practice of mediumship, right? Stevan, can I start with you?
Yeah, sure. So the lesson here is always be open to learn. Always be open to serve. That's the main point here. And always ask, if I would receive, if I'm in position, this person here who's receiving this, how I would feel. Always put yourself in someone's shoes. And as Thiago said as well, and Kardec said, we recognize a true spiritist by the efforts in order to become a better person. So efforts doesn't mean you will get it, but at least you are trying. That's it. Leave more time for the others.
I appreciate that, Stevan. It's, brevity is the soul to wisdom sometimes. I thank you for that. Thiago, can we come to you? What are your final thoughts on this important topic?
Yeah, I would say Jesus is our guide. So when we're talking about ethics and moral, he was the perfect spirit that came to earth to teach us how to live in harmony. So if he is our guide also with mediumship, so let's us study what he brought us, all of his lessons, let reflect, because he's the person that we aim to be as a spirit. So how he deal with the mediumship of cure, like healing, that it was brought to us today, the question, how he treat the people around him. So he's our guide. So let's study the gospel to understand exactly what was his lesson. This was from 2,000 years ago. Imagine how wisdom like he was at the time. So let's us study what Jesus, so we can use this mediumship with him, not for ourselves. So that's what I want to bring today.
Thank you, Thiago. That is great. João, no pressure, but wrap us up here in terms of your takeaways.
I think we have an example in terms of mediumship, which is Chico Xavier, right? The instructions he received from Emmanuel in the beginning of his work was 3 words: discipline, discipline, discipline. We should all try to apply these teachings to our daily lives, especially in the practice and study of mediumship, but also looking at how Chico Xavier worked with his mediumship. He never received a single penny for any of the more than 400 books published, never received a penny for any letter that he received from loved ones that have departed. And it was not for a lack of trying. People tried to shower him with gifts and money, and he would receive and give to someone else, receive and give to someone else. He never kept a single present or donation he received. He lived with his own resources. Of course, we are far from being Chico Xavier, but we can look at his example as a guideline, as an objective, as the light at the end of the tunnel that we should all try to get to, because we should follow the good examples, even if they look very difficult for us.
Wonderful. Thank you, João. Thank you, Thiago. Thank you, Stevan, for sharing your time, your experience, your insights into what is very important, which is the practice of mediumship and how to be ethical and responsible with this wonderful gift that allows us to recall that we are immortal spirits and that we're always growing because we are talking to the spirits. We have so many messages that we can glean. We have wisdom that we can come from. And I think that your contributions today have really made it easier and clearer for us on ways that we can work towards becoming better human beings by practicing mediumship ethically and responsibly. Thank you so very much, the 3 of you. And thank you also if you're listening or watching this, whether live or later on. We want to thank you for your interest in the topic and for your contributions, because this is also for you and because of you and with your questions. So thank you for sharing your questions, sharing your comments, sharing your perspectives, and watching our series. And if you have watched the series and this show, this episode right now, and you thought it was useful, please also let us know in the comments, and also hit that like button or subscribe, because it also helps this kind of content be served to more people and reach more people who might be interested. That's one way that we can also help in contributing this. Follow the International Spiritist Council for more. There will be more episodes of dialogues on mediumship. And thank you so very much for trying to improve yourself through the practice and study of mediumship, so that all of us can benefit. And until the next episode, we thank you for watching and for being with us. And thank you to our panelists again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.